everybody. Welcome to Florida Seafood at Your Fingertips Live. My name is Angela Collins and I am a Florida Sea Grant Extension Agent based in Manatee County. I'm with Florida Sea Grant and the University of Florida IFAS Extension, and I'm really excited to be sharing one of my favorite seafood recipes with you all this evening. So the recipe is what we like to call at home cookout clams. It's about as simple and as local as you can get if you live here on the west coast of Florida, which is where I am. I'm going to give you a little bit of a background on why clams are so great to eat, and obviously show you all you need to make this recipe at home. So cookout clams are one of those things that you can make. We like to take them with us if we go to a friend's for a barbecue because they're super easy to throw on the grill. All you need is the clams and a pan to put on a grill. You can use gas grills, you can use a charcoal grill. Any source of heat is a fine way to get these clams prepared. And then really that can be an appetizer. You can have it just as a little clammy snack while you're waiting for whatever else the main entree might be, or like we do at home most of the time, you can make it into a meal. So, if you make it into a meal, you just cook your clams on the grill, you have a nice salad and some crusty bread to go with it, and you make a lovely sauce to go along. So let's get to it. Let's go ahead and get the clams on the grill and get them going, and I'll give you a little bit more background. So clams are aquaculture, and they are aquaculture throughout the U.S., but we have a wonderful clam industry here in Florida. This is kind of what they look like if you're going to buy them at the store. And clams are one of the most highly regulated seafood products that you are able to buy. So these guys are, if you buy them in the store, you can be very confident that they are safe to eat. They are managed by the state of Florida, Florida Department of Ag and Consumer Services. So these guys have strict water quality restrictions that they are, monitored and they have to keep track of. And all clams that you buy are going to be labeled with some sort of identifying tag. So this tag always has the same information on it, and it gives you some really great info, like the harvest area, where these clams were actually harvested from, what shellfish lease they came off of, the harvest date, how many of them there are, and these are hard clams, so they have that little neck, middle neck description. These particular ones that we're going to be dealing with today are little neck clams. Little necks are great for pasta too. There are so many clammy recipes out there that you can prepare using hard clams. So again, these are the species that we're dealing with. Again, it's hard clam, Mercenaria, or the more local species might be Mercenaria campechiensis, but the ones that are farmed here in Florida are almost always Mercenaria or some hybrid of those two that I just said, which isn't really important for the recipe tonight, but I just like to geek out on clams whenever I get the chance. So again, you buy these, you can buy them, typically most seafood markets will have clams for sale all year long, so you can typically find them in your local seafood market. Sometimes the larger supermarkets will also carry them, so if you're interested in buying them, you can always look for a local seafood purveyor on the FDAC's website. They actually have a list of all places, seafood retail markets that you can visit in your area and purchase local seafood products. So again, this is kind of what it looks like. We've got about 50 little neck clams that we're going to be dealing with tonight. After you buy them, before you prepare them, I'm going to just go ahead and have another option here for you right here already prepared. So before you put them on the grill, you want to go through that bag of clams. You want to rinse them off really well, scrub them up pretty nice, but typically from most of the clam farms that we buy here on the west coast of Florida, they're normally very clean already. There's not a lot of scrubbing that you need to do. Just kind of give them a rinse in the sink and then examine each individual clam before you cook it. So you just want to make sure that they're closed tight. There are no gaps in the shells and there are no chips or any other sort of defect that has exposed that animal inside. So you just want to make sure that these guys are all nice and tightly closed once you've rinsed them off, and then they're ready to cook. So I'm gonna put them on the grill and just kind of let them start cooking while we keep talking about the wonders of clam as a food product. I typically use any grill safe pan. You can, buy those little foil pans in the store that you can throw away, but we like to reuse the same clam pan. This is our at-home clam pan. We usually put a little bit of foil on the bottom just because the clams come out of the salt water and they do have a tendency to have this lovely salty brine inside of them. So when they open as they're cooking, that salty brine can get on your pan and sometimes it can get a little rusty at the bottom. So we we foil line it for a couple of reasons. One, to protect the pan a little bit, but mostly also to save that lovely salty brine that the clams get rid of when they're cooking. So you can save that salty brine for other things. So anyway, you go ahead and you have your pan. It's nice and lined. You've got your nice, fresh, clean clams. And I should have mentioned this earlier, but all clams should be refrigerated. It's a perishable product, so you want to make sure that you keep them cool if you're not handling them. So I had them in a little cooler here next to the picnic table while I was getting everything ready. So just keep them cool, keep them in the fridge until you're ready to cook them, or keep them in a cooler if you're at a barbecue. So just go ahead and, kind of dump them in your pan. Got a nice little lovely layer of little neck, locally grown, Tampa Bay, aquacultured clam that's ready to go here. I just normally kind of spread them all out so that they're laying flat and kind of separate them a little bit so they're not on top of each other. So you have a nice single layer of clams. So I've got the gas grill preheated just because it's super simple. You're more than welcome to use charcoal or whatever other grilling machine you might have in your yard. But if you get the grill preheated, we usually keep it on like a medium to medium low heat. And then once it's cleaned off and preheated and hot, you can just set the clams in there. The clams are gonna cook for about 8 to 10 minutes. You're gonna cook the clams until you see them pop open, and then once they've popped open, you're gonna let them cook for a little bit longer so everybody just kind of gets wide open, and then you know that they're fully cooked. But that being said, I will say that clams are also kind of delicious raw. Some people like to eat clams just right out of the shell. So if you undercook them, no need to panic. It's fine. But most of the time people do like their seafood fully cooked depending on your crowd. So go ahead and wait until they've been open for a little bit before you take them off. But total cooking time shouldn't be longer than about 10 to 12 minutes typically. So if they're bigger, they might take a little bit longer to get hot all the way through. But these are little necks, so it'll probably take these guys about 10 minutes to cook. So I'm gonna just go ahead and stick them on the grill. Again, the grill has been preheated and it's on medium heat, and you wanna put them right over that fire. So direct heat is fine. Some people just put them right actually on the grill grate. We just put them in the pan because that way we can save the juice and keep them for, keep all the juice contained too. But if you want to put them directly on the grill grate and use tongs to take them off, that is another fully easy way to put them on the grill. So I'm gonna go stick them in there. So those guys are in. I'm gonna let them cook for a little bit. And like I said before, eating clams just by themselves, just popping them out of the shell and eating them that way is an awesome snack. So they don't need anything, but we're gonna dress them up a little bit tonight. But they are one of those things that are, I can't say enough good things about clams because they're so good for you. Number one, they're really high in iron, high in omega-3s, which are those, really important brain building blocks that are in a lot of different seafood products. Clams are low in fat, so that's like a tasty, salty snack that really doesn't have a lot of extra calories or things that you don't need, but has a lot of good nutritious value packed into that little body. So clams are filter feeders. which basically means that they're filtering the water for phytoplankton, and that is how they grow and survive, is basically filtering phytoplankton out of the water column. They've got a lovely little siphon that they stick out of those two little shells, which is what makes them a bivalve. They are bivalve shellfish. When you hear people talk about shellfish, sometimes you think about lobsters or shrimp, but in this case we're talking about bivalves. So clams are bivalve molluscan shellfish, and they are filter feeders. So when they're in the water, they're filtering it out, and actually clam farming has been linked to increases in water clarity, because you've got all these great little filter feeders that are out there growing up, filtering the water and making the place that they are growing a little bit cleaner than it was, which is kind of a great thing. So clam farms are one of the greenest agricultural industries that are out there. Clam farmers do not need to feed their product. They can just put those baby bivalves out there on the shellfish leases, which are all in very strictly monitored, highly regulated, very good water quality condition approved spots. So the clams grow up on these shellfish leases, the farmers take care of them, and when they're ready to go to market, the farmers go through the harvest process, pulling them out of the water and leaving the water, basically, they don't, cleaner than it was when the clams went in. So it's one of those agricultural products you can feel really good about consuming. And as I mentioned before, they're super good for you and very, very local. So Florida shellfish aquaculture has been going on, with some good force since the early 90s. Most of the shellfish aquaculture in Florida takes place in the Cedar Key area, so a little bit near the Big Bend region on the Gulf Coast of Florida. But we also have active shellfish farmers in the Tampa Bay estuary and the Charlotte Harbor estuary, as well as on the east coast of Florida. So you can get locally produced shellfish, bivalve shellfish, from pretty much anywhere in the state. You can get some shellfish that was grown close to home. Today we're eating some that came directly out of Tampa Bay, which literally we could throw a rock that way and get really close to the waters that these specific clams came out of. So during this COVID pandemic, obviously, one of the things that we're all doing more than we were probably before, is eating at home. And the seafood consumption in the U.S. Typically has been, the majority of it has been at restaurants. So this is a great way for you to support your local seafood producers. Any kind of local seafood product you want to buy. If you can buy it at your local market or at the grocery store, you can request local product. That helps support some of our seafood producers who have been, obviously seriously impacted by the COVID pandemic. So eat local whenever you can. Also think about that reduced carbon footprint just by eating local. Your seafood doesn't have to travel very far. If you can support the guys that are going out and getting product right in your local waters, that's a really great way to reduce the amount of travel time your seafood has to do. Okay, so let's get back to our clams. They've been on the grill for a little bit now, but I'm gonna make kind of like a little sauce that we typically like to use when we make our clams a meal. We always have a nice crusty bread. In this case tonight we've got some Italian that I'm going to throw on the grill for the last couple minutes of clam cooking just to get it warm. And when we make our sauce, you're going to need just a few things. So olive oil, garlic. I usually use somewhere between 3 and 4 cloves of garlic. Tonight my cloves are pretty large, so I've got 3 in here. It is raw, so know your company. Hopefully they don't mind the smell of garlic, but we love it here in our house. Garlic is another one of those things that's really, really good for all parts of your body. So have some garlic, some olive oil, a little Parmesan cheese, some crushed red pepper, and typically we like to use a little black pepper too. And then lemon is not required by any stretch, but if you have a lemon around, sometimes it's nice to just squeeze a little bit of lemon on there too. And then chives. These we just got out of the garden, so they're just rinsed off and dried, and I'm just gonna chop them up. And chives are lovely in flavor, but also make a little bit prettier presentation. If you're presenting to a group, you have that little bit of splash of green on top of your clams. So I'm just going to go ahead and make the sauce. Olive oil here. I put in the recipe, it's about 1/3 cup, but I typically don't measure anything because I like the excitement of a little tiny bit of flavor difference every time we cook. So I think that's about 1/3 cup. You can chop your garlic or you can use a garlic press. We typically do the garlic press just because it's easier and it smushes it up really, really nice for the sauce. So you can just kind of squish your garlic into that olive oil. Obviously, I've washed my hands right before I started filming, after I touched my phone. So you get your nice clean knife and you can just sort of, get that garlic smushed into your bowl of olive oil. This is probably one of my favorite kitchen tools because we put garlic in everything. So I love this garlic press because my fingers don't reek all the time. I can just throw the cloves in here and the garlic press does all the work for me. Sometimes it's nice to chop it too, but in this case tonight, for the sake of time, we're just gonna stick it in there with the press. So we've got a nice bowl of olive oil and garlic. Got a very interested co-worker here. My dog hasn't had his dinner yet, so he's kind of excited about what we might be making over here. It's been a little bit of time, so I am going to take a peek at the clams and just sort of see what they look like, see how many have popped open. Oh yeah. So these guys are looking good. I should have mentioned before, you don't really need to turn them, but we've got a bunch that have opened. But we still have some in there that are tightly shut. So I'm going to go ahead and put them back in the grill for a few more minutes. And we can finish making our sauce. So we've got our olive oil and our garlic. I always do, like, I don't know, a 1/2 tablespoon or so of Parmesan cheese, just because it's good. And a splash of red pepper for a little bit of that spice. Probably like, I don't know, I put maybe a 1/4 teaspoon or so in there. It also gives it some color, which is nice. And a little bit of freshly ground pepper. So we'll get that all mixed up and it'll be ready. And so what we do if we have company over or if we have, non-family members at the table, we typically have little serving dishes and we'll split this sauce up so everybody can have their own little bowl. I'm going to add a little bit more olive oil so that we have a little bit more. The other great thing about this, besides just being delicious, you can dip your bread into it, you can dip your clams into it, but if you have any left over and you want to use it as a salad dressing on a nice green salad, you can add a little bit of vinegar and throw it on top of your salad as well. So there's our nice olive oil, garlicky dipping sauce. I'm going to go ahead and set that aside for now. And we've probably got just a few more minutes on our clams until they're ready. I did want to mention that shellfish aquaculture, again, is one of those industries in Florida that has a capability to grow quite a bit. And shellfish aquaculture, as I mentioned at the beginning, is highly regulated. So consumers can feel really safe about purchasing this product if they're purchasing it at a grocery store or in a restaurant, because it is, again, strictly regulated, and all of the shellfish farms are in really good waters. They're specifically made for, they're chosen because the water quality is tip-top. So sometimes when I talk to consumers, they say, how do we know our shellfish is safe? And I always say, if you buy it in a store or you buy it in a restaurant, you can be quite confident that it is completely safe to eat, as long as you as a consumer keep it safe, keep it cool, put it in the fridge, store it in the fridge, you know, and definitely cook it within a week or so of purchasing. We normally cook ours within a few days after we buy them, but most of the time when you get local product, it's been harvested within the past couple of days. So you can be assured that it's nice and fresh. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and put this bread on the grill so that it can get nice and warm, because it's really nice to have your clams with some of the olive oil and drizzled on yummy, warm, crunchy bread. Come on in here. I think actually these clams might be really close to done. They are done. If you can see them, they have all opened. There's this lovely brine liquid down at the bottom. And they are good to eat. I'm ready to like eat one right this second, but I'm gonna put them into a bowl and you can sort of see what we do next. Okay. So if you guys weren't watching me do this, we would typically just be, you know, eating them as we're pulling them off the grill. But I'm going to stick them in a bowl. Right. Look at how beautiful these are. So, and I did that on purpose so that I would keep that briny juice that they basically get rid of when they open up. All that briny juice is salty. These guys come with their own salt. So if you noticed before, I didn't put any salt on anything because these guys are already, they come seasoned because they come out of that lovely salty water inside of Tampa Bay. So we've got some beautiful little neck local clams here that are ready to eat. They're super easy to take out of the shell. All you need is basically a fork. You pick up your shell. If you were eating them at a backyard barbecue, you could give everybody their own little bowl and their own fork, and they can just pull that little clam out of the shell like that. It comes out super easy when it's cooked, and they're awesome. They're a little salty. You can taste a little bit of Tampa Bay in there, which I think is a great thing because that's close to home for me. And then you have, again, that little meat that's packed with protein, high in nutrients, high in omega-3s, and just super delicious. So you've got those there. We save our clams and then we put them in good places so you don't have to put them into the landfill. You can use them as, you know, driveway cover if you want, if you have a shell backyard. But there are our clams. And we've got our sauce here. And I've created a green salad too for my family because they're going to eat this after we're all done tonight. So hopefully they all eat their greens. And it's in the fridge. So I'm going to pull that salad out in just a second. But once you have your clams cooked, if you're outside, you might want to have a nice clean thing to cover your whatever you pull off the grill, because you guys know how bugs are here in Florida, so you want to keep them away from your delicious food. So I'm just going to cover those up for a second. I'm going to grab the bread. And bread doesn't, you guys know, bread doesn't need to stay on the grill for a long time. You just want it to get warm enough so that it's, you know, not cold. And sometimes it's nice to get it a little crustier. So I've got my bread, I've already pre-sliced it, so it's ready to go. We can drizzle our olive oil, garlic, red pepper mixture on top. I'm gonna probably cut some chives here in a second to create some green ambiance on top of the clams, and then you have your dinner. Dinner is served. Another thing you can do if you don't eat all of your clams, which is kind of impossible because they're delicious, so you're going to eat them all right away. But if you don't, a lot of times what I'll do if we have any leftover is I'll sprinkle them over a salad and then use a tiny bit of my olive oil garlic dressing on that salad, and you have like a really nice, healthy, fresh lunch or second dinner if you're hungry later in the evening. So I hope that you enjoyed this time with me. I enjoyed showing you one of my favorite backyard recipes. I hope you make it at home. If you have any questions about shellfish in general, please do not hesitate to look at the shellfish.ifas.ufl.edu website. The University of Florida has a great website that's dedicated to shellfish. So you can just type that, Shellfish University of Florida, and that website will pop up, and you can find out all you ever wanted to know about shellfish production in Florida. I also encourage you to look at the Florida Department of Ag and Consumer Services website, because they have a wonderful list of resources for folks that are interested in purchasing local seafood products. So I showed you one of my favorites today, shellfish, but we have so many amazing seafood products in Florida that are locally produced. We've got groupers, snappers, stone crab, lobster, all kinds of shrimp, wonderful, wonderful Florida produced products, mullet, that you can find local producers and local markets that sell products close to you if you check out that FDAC's website, because they do have different consumer resources there for seafood products close to you. So thanks again for tuning in. I hope you're going to make clams. I know my family's ready to eat, so I'll sign off for now, but don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions in the future.